Metalheads! Welcome back to another episode of Metal Verbalizers podcast. This podcast is for you that wants to discover new fantastic metal. We feel that there aren't enough podcasts that support the underground scene. And that's why the whole purpose of this podcast is to find new and or smaller bands and tell you about them. In this episode we are going to talk about a band that play a very concept-based melodic hard rock. This sounds great to me, and I'm sure it sounds great to you as well. This is Sarayasign. Sarayasign officially became a band in May of 2022 in Sweden. The band is very new, but they have already released 2 albums that we are going to have a closer look at later in this episode. The influences of the band is what they grew up with. They mentioned bands like Kiss, Black Sabbath, and Dio. I also asked the band how they would compare their sound to other bands to give you a more clear picture of what they would sound like. And here they mentioned bands like Queensryche and the album Headless Cross from Black Sabbath. Image-wise, everything is built around a concept. The concept is described like a paranormal take on the Lord of the Rings that revolves around time and space. Saraya is what they call this imaginary land, and their lyrics are built upon the story that lives in this land. Apparently, this particular journey that they've taken us on so far is going to have its conclusion on album 4. We already have 2 albums, so there is still a lot more to be told in this story. As if that would not be enough, they ensure us that there are more stories to be told and more places to discover. Like I've said many times before, I absolutely love when bands put in this extra effort and create a whole concept that they can build everything upon and around. And in this case, they've created a whole new imaginary land that they can create their stories in. I think that's absolutely awesome. So right now, we have been talking a little bit about the band itself and where they come from. So right now, I want to take a closer look at the actual music that the band has released. We're going to start off with 2 singles that they released, first teasers for their big debut. These 2 singles are called When Worlds Collide and If Only for a Moment. Both of the songs starts off very similar, with thunder and rain sounds. Where they differ from each other is that the first one rocks quite hard, while the second one is more of a powerful rock ballad. And I got to say that it is a fantastic ballad. Something that I think is interesting that they have done with this as well is that the covers for the singles, they are very similar, where both have an 8-pointed star with a circle around it. The only thing that makes them different are the symbols in the middle of this star. Now it is time for the band's big debut. It was released back in 2022 and is called Throne of Gold. I love the cover for this one. It is very mystical. It pictures what looks like it could be a forest with someone walking with what I assume is a lantern and a sword. What I love with this that you can't really see if it is a human or another kind of a creature. One track on here that stands out, to me at least, is the 3rd on the album. That is called Distant Memories. In the beginning you can hear a car starting and going to the car stereo and searching through the channels, just before driving off and then getting into a crash. Firstly, I didn't really expect to hear a car because I thought that their story were going to be more like Lord of the Rings, where it is more in the ancient times. But I love to be surprised, and I also love these atmospheric segments that they have put into their songs to get you in the right mode for the songs and their story. Before the next step in their story and the next album was released, we did get 2 new singles, once again to tease us of what to come. These are called Every Dying Night and When All Lights Go Out. When All Lights Go Out is for sure one of my absolute favorite songs from this band. It was one of the first songs that I heard with the band, and it got me hooked straight away. When I heard this song, I knew that I had to make this episode. It packs a punch with heavy riffing and a huge, powerful chorus. It is everything that you want in a good hard rock song. Every Dying Night is also a song that packs a punch with way faster riffing, which is cool. Since we talked about Black Sabbath as an influence, it might be appropriate to compare some of the riffing in this song with the Randy Rhoads era of Ozzy Osbourne. I also love that we once again get these ambient soundscapes that I loved from the previous album. These we will get more as well in the coming album. Speaking of the coming album, it is called The Lion's Road and was together with the singles released in 2023. The album cover for this album is once again picturing a mystical forest, this time with a illuminated creature in the background. Throne of Gold was the name of the previous album and also the final song on the album as the title track. Something that is really cool that they have done here is that they have, as the final track on this album, they have made a part 2 of that song. It is once again a beautiful hard rock ballad. I love when bands can make good ballads. And not only songs that are full steam ahead and the pedal to the metal, if you know what I mean. Even more interesting with this song is that it is written as several songs in one, so a few parts in the song doesn't really feel like a ballad, whilst some of the parts of the songs are a really good ballad. I think that's really cool, and it's really hard to make it make sense. So it's a really good job on that one. Alright, now we have gone through all of their current releases. That means that it is time for my little segment that I like to call Erik's Top 5. This list is my way to give you an idea of where you might want to start when listening to the band. In this case for Sarayasign, since there is a story behind the songs and albums, I would recommend to listen to the albums from start to finish in order. But anyways, here we go. Number 1, Distant Memories from Throne of Gold. Number 2, Sandman from Throne of Gold. And number 3, When All Lights Go Out from The Lion's Road. Number 4, Every Dying Night from The Lion's Road. And number 5, Throne of Gold Part 2, A Heartless Melody from The Lion's Road. This was my list. Now I would like to know about you. Do you agree with my list, or do you have other songs that you would have put on your list? Join us on our social medias and let's discuss it. The future will, as of right now, give us 2 new albums. These albums will be following the same story as the first 2 albums. And like I said earlier, the final and 4th album will give us the conclusion to this story. When I contacted the band, they had already 20 very early stage demos and has started to finish them. This is not something that is confirmed by the band, but if we are very lucky, we might have a new 3rd album already this year. But like I said, this is not confirmed by the band, and they have not mentioned anything about releasing an album this year. But since they released an album in 2022 and then another one in 2023, we might be lucky, I don't know. Of course, they also want to and plan to bring their music to this stage as well and play it live. And as a last word, they wanted to really thank every single one of their fans. That means you. You mean everything to them, and they could not have done it without you. Alright, now I want to ask you, does this sound like this is a band for you? In that case, do not hesitate to give them their music a listen.
If it doesn't sound like what you usually like, give them a chance anyways. You might find something new that you like. That happens to me all the time when doing this podcast. If you do like them, do not forget to give their social medias a follow. It is the easiest way to support them, and as a bonus, you'll stay updated on what they are up to next. And hey, it's actually totally free. If you like what we are doing here on the podcast, bringing you new awesome metal to enjoy, don't forget to give our social medias a follow as well. We always appreciate it, and this way you will always be updated on what bands we are going to verbalize next. Sometimes we also talk to the bands and have them tell stories from their tours. You can also suggest bands that you would like us to verbalize. We always take suggestions in consideration when we plan our episodes. But anyways, thank you so much for listening. You've been listening to Metal Verbalizers podcast, Verbalizing Sarayasign.